sides. And this is when you start.
You're wrong. You're wrong. You're absolutely wrong about this.
Hey, Mark.
Can I fit?
We can have this conversation.
No, hold on.
7 years I put in a nigga. 7 years I put in a nigga.
When clips of a tense debate between staff members of the Joe Budden podcast circulated online, commentary spread about the possible leftist shift of hip-hop's leading media entity. The debate between co-hosts Antoine Ishmarby and Marc Lamont Hill highlighted the delicacy and annoyance of dismantling misinformation in a digital age. While the debate and Hill's permanent fixture on the podcast have been largely welcome, the spectacle can be explored much more deeply, particularly Black men's role in the safeguarding and destruction of the culture.
Do you feel empowered when I'm here?
I mean, I love your attendance.
And I love yours.
Thank you.
But do you feel empowered when I'm here? Do you feel like emboldened when I'm here?
No.
I'll allow it.
No, I do not.
A little on-air flirt.
It's not flirting.
Definitely not flirting.
Then put your normal voice in.
I'm Sayou Cooper, and this is The Griots, reporting on hip-hop culture through a mix of soapbox editorials, weird commercial breaks, and some very serious guests. In 2025, Joe Budden is the preferred voice in hip-hop media, only second to DJ Academics, a Jamaican-American disc jockey turned personality leading hip-hop's manosphere, a term to describe the online space of men's rights activists and content creators with radically conservative views of gender and sex. Although Budden might be perceived as more liberal in comparison to Academics, both men's audiences across their respective platforms overlap.
I try to compete. Like, y'all feel like we're on the same league, so I'm trying to make sure I'm...
No, you're trying to see the pecking order of...
Facts, come on now, of course.
After his Grammy-nominated 2003 track, Pump It Up, by the 2010s, Joe Budden was more known for his online takes and personality. Vlogging on YouTube since 2007, you'll see a lot of appearances from his ex-girlfriend Tahiri Jose and older uploads. The two were cast in Season 3 of the reality TV series Love and Hip Hop New York. From a 2018 New York Times profile, Budden's manager, Ian Schwartzman, referred to him as the hip-hop Howard Stern. In terms of what he's capable of doing as a personality, it was limitless.
My name is Joe Budden, and I'm known for being a rapper. I'm notoriously known for living my life, especially my love life, in the public eye.
Hear me and hear me good. I'm here to double down. That a 2-pack of ass. The f*** are you talking about? That shit stinks.
I think our family is there. I know that's right.
I want you who's well-spoken and articulates himself well.
My chill.
It took a while for Budden to get to hip-hop media's top guy, starting his podcast in 2015 with a short stint on Complex Morning Show, Everyday Struggle in 2017. He battled drug addiction for years and didn't exactly have a swell time in the music industry, signing to Def Jam Records in the early 2000s and parting ways a few years later. When it comes to his rapping abilities, he's respected. Rapper Drake has cited him as an influence in his early come-up, but the podcaster Budden officially retired from the rap game in 2018.
This program was made possible by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
The Griots is funded by viewers like you. If you're really enjoying this episode and would like to support the work of the platform, you can just like, comment, or subscribe. Hello. So it's day one, consuming nothing but the Joe Budden podcast. I've done this video numerous times and numerous takes, trying to find good lighting. I just woke up. I'm not sure if I'm gonna listen to the podcast at the gym because I'm going to the gym right now because I want to take notes. But I'm just gonna be consuming pretty much a lot of Joe Budden content for this week. So wish me luck, I guess. But yeah, day one, feeling okay. Episode 1 of the Joe Budden podcast was released on February 18, 2015 through SoundCloud and iTunes. Back then, the podcast was known as the I'll Name This Podcast Later, and the first co-host the audience was introduced to was Marissa Mendez. Mendez is a radio host and journalist. You can find her current bylines in Hip Hop DX. To better understand the podcast dynamics, I binge listened to over a dozen episodes spread out through crucial times in the podcast's history. The topic for the first episode is one the show revisits and talks about often, which is woman, or as Budden stated, the gender-neutral term, Hoes. The first 25 minutes of the episode is devoted to the hosts recapping their NBA All-Star Weekend. This is 2015, so All-Star Weekend is taking place in New York City. The setting is mostly the notorious Brooklyn strip club Lust, where Joe Budden chastised Marissa Mendez for trying too hard to get a rapper's attention. You get the first mentions of Rory Farrow and Ish. Fun fact, Rory is actually from my home state of Rhode Island. Well, at least he went to high school there. He attended North Kingstown High School, a town and a county I generally associate as really white and upper middle class. With this context, it's been intriguing to watch his ascent into hip-hop media and significantly black culture. The podcast has a proper production team because at one point you hear Joe Budden mention Marissa Mendez intern in the room, and you hear this guy Peter Plenty in the background. I later find out it's Peter Rosenberg. Rosenberg is an established broadcaster in the hip-hop space, and you can find him on Hot 97's Ebro in the Morning.
I love my body, and a lot of people on the internet do. But in particular, it was actually made as a joke. I was on Joe Budden's podcast, and I was like his little sister. He liked to make fun of me all the time, so he always said, "Oh, your body's trash." So he would like to just make fun of me, like, "Oh, Marty the body," like as if it was a joke. But
after that, I skipped several releases to episode 76, which premiered on YouTube on August 19, 2016. It's the first time I hear Rory's voice, who's joined by Joe Budden and this week's guest host, Star. Star is a radio and TV personality in urban media, and quoted directly from his website, is 5 feet and 7 inches tall. He is also heterosexual. You won't hear Marissa Mendez in this episode because Budden confirms he fired her. There's a lot of context that I'm missing when it comes to the Mendez firing, but Budden's mention of his interview on Hot 97's Ebro in the Morning about a week earlier leads me to a new tab.
I'm 36. What the do I owe you? What are you talking about?
what do you mean? What do you, as a friend, as somebody at work, when you don't call somebody, you fire someone over a text message? That's how you do that? On a show we started together?
For the first 20 minutes of this interview, it's pretty much Joe Budden defending his beef with Drake, which at the time was seen as one-sided because Budden dropped several diss tracks in comparison to Drake's Scatter Subliminals on No Shopping and 4 p.m. in Calabasas. Joe Budden attests that the beef is mutual. Then we finally get on to the Marissa Mendez firing, which Budden admitted he did by text message. The Hot 97 crew, including Ebro Darden, Peter Rosenberg, and Laura Stiles, really pushes Budden to answer questions about the matter, even though it looks like he doesn't want to be there and states "I don't care" several times. But he does clarify the firing was due to it being time to go separate ways. It's refreshing to watch Ebro on Hot 97 because he's a strong and blunt interviewer compared to the very corporate role he has on Apple Music. More information is revealed about how Rosenberg and Mendez helped to build the podcast, including Rosenberg connecting Joe Budden with a free studio to record. Back to episode 77, Budden doesn't provide any new insight on the Mendez split, and guest star asks the host to move on. The three hosts talk about trending topics such as the Ryan Lochte Olympic scandal, and when Star mentions he's voting for Donald Trump in the 2016 election and was tired of seeing Michelle Obama with her mouth poked out, I was eager to finish the episode.
My job was like, yo, if you just want to work part-time and you could just have Tuesday and Friday, like, we'll take you. Whatever you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever you want to do, you
What
can
were
do.
you doing there?
Got you.
Got you.
Yeah.
Hey, all off camera.
Right after that, episode 77 premiered on YouTube on August 24th, 2016. Joe Budden is joined by his permanent co-host Rory. I hear another voice that's new to me, but probably not to the podcast's subscribers, since Budden doesn't provide a lengthy introduction. It's Lamar Ice Burney, whose background outside of the Joe Budden network is a bit hazy. Before coming on as a full-time cast member, he was essentially one of Joe Budden's friends with a regular job, and somewhat popular on Black Twitter. His loyalty to Budden can be explained by the money and clout associated with the relationship. Take a stroll through Ice's Instagram, there isn't much happening outside of the Joe Budden network. Shortly after, Joe Budden goes on a long-winded introduction for a new guest, simply known as Mal. Mal's claim to hip-hop royalty is through his brother Kareem Biggs Burke, who co-founded Rockefeller Records with Jay-Z and Dame Dash. For the rest of the 2-hour show, the four men talk about trending topics, including Frank Ocean's Blonde, the time Mal and Budden went to jail together, and the usual hoes and bitches talk. Now in episode 94, the men are finally on camera. The show begins with the death of George Michael. They discuss rapper Troy Ave getting shot again, segue into a conversation about what they like their partners wearing to bed. Apparently, boy shorts are really underrated in contrast to thongs. It's after Christmas, right before New Year's, so the men talk more about the year in music and their plans for New Year's Eve. Reflecting on the podcast's dynamic, topic, now several episodes in. Mal is there, Rory plays more of an admin role, and Joe's still an authoritative voice.
So anyway, my point is, there were a lot of people who I had never said anything bad about, who I thought we were, I was cool with.
It's 2019 now, and I'm on episode 271. The guest host is the polarizing Queens rapper Nicki Minaj, and a lot has changed for the podcast. Through an exclusive deal with the audio streaming service Spotify, the podcast is now the Joe Budden Podcast with Rory and Mal. From a press release, the company stated, beginning September 12, 2018, the Joe Budden Podcast will bring its hugely influential series exclusively to Spotify, doubling the numbers of episodes for the podcast. New episodes will drop every Wednesday and Saturday of each week. Along with becoming one of the most influential persons in hip-hop media, Budden is making a ton of money. By now, you see the early formation of the Joe Budden Network because the podcaster is implementing new content outside of his principal podcast. He's interviewing big-name rappers like Vince Staples, Jada Kiss, Chance the Rapper, and now Nicki Minaj. The podcast studio, where episodes are taped, become iconic thanks to the show's audio engineer, Richard Parks Valley, lending his living room for filming. As for the Nicki Minaj guest drop-in, it's the rehashing of the Motorsport Fallout, a rap collaboration that caused the beef between Minaj and Bronx rapper Cardi B. It's the Queen era, so Minaj is on the defense, justifying her legacy to 3 men she felt instigated the beef further. Mal hardly speaks until she leaves.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's intermission time. You now have 10 minutes to stock up on the tasty treats offered at our refreshment stand.
Joining us from Philadelphia, Professor Marc Lamont Hill teaches at Columbia University.
Jennifer, what went through your mind when that drink got thrown and you saw her on the table?
I was thinking that I was at the zoo with a goddamn animal.
Go on, say the M word. Go on.
No.
No.
Don't invite. No. I don't want you to invite this woman to say a racially harmful term in front of me.
Side note, I'm thinking a lot about the demographics of this show, like who is watching, like when it comes to race, gender, and age breakdown. I'm thinking that particularly because I used to follow this Black creator. She's a Black woman, like fairly huge-ish. And she was like a big fan of the show. I don't know if she's still a fan of the show, but I eventually unfollowed her because she was, doing a lot of pick-me stuff. So still really entrenched in the patriarchy and internal misogyny. And so now I'm listening to the podcast. I was like, okay, I can see how you got sucked into this podcast or how this podcast is enticing to you. But I don't know. I feel like for Black women, my demographic, like for example, I'm 28. I'm fairly educated. Like I have my highest level of education is a master's degree. I'm fairly like embedded in leftist circles, so I'm part of the All Africans People Revolutionary Party. So like my politics and like social consciousness is like pretty left, and so I just can't imagine women and like Black women, particularly in my demographic, like actually sitting down to enjoy and listening to this podcast. Like it has to be either like a guilty pleasure, because I know there's a lot of problematic people that I still follow and consume their content that would never really like broadcast. I would never tell you to go check out this person's video. So I'm either thinking it's that, and then I'm also thinking it's like patriarchy and women participating in furthering misogyny, right? Because I just can't think of women who are like progressive in their politics to think this podcast is good. Like I don't know. There's this belief in the academy that if you're too public that you must not be a serious intellectual. I think that's a flawed way of thinking about it. I think there are weak intellectuals who never go on TV, and that there are brilliant intellectuals who are only ever on TV. Marc Lamont Hill told Ebony magazine in 2012. When it was officially announced in 2024 that Hill was joining the Joe Budden podcast, his inclusion looked unnatural. Why would an Ivy League professor and esteemed political commentator join a hip-hop media platform not exactly known for its ethics? But a thorough examination of Hill's resume provides more context and makes his hosting gig on the podcast a lot more sense. He's built his media profile bringing leftist talking points to places not normally accustomed to it, such as Fox News, Piers Morgan Uncensored, and even a meetup with the far-right's favorite black woman, Candace Owens. He also hosted the reunion specials for the VH1 reality series Basketball Wives LA. I do consider myself a leader, but I worry we're still holding on to an antiquated notion of what leadership is and what it should look like. We've developed an idea that 2 or 3 Christ-like figures are going to come and move a community forward. I don't think that organizations have ever progressed based on that. There have always been a wide range of people doing work, college dropout to PhD, the bold and beautiful Marc Lamont Hill, Dream Hampton for Ebony magazine.
If it's a quick in and out, cool. But y'all already look away as a bunch of focusing on anything male person. I keep saying that. Y'all keep doing it.
Prior to See the Thing Is, Joe's network has served as a home for content hosted and produced solely by himself, such as his popular YouTube interview series, Pull Up. So his decision to expand his brand to include other content creators, especially black women, is not only a smart play to diversify his content, but an interesting choice in light of abuse allegations recently levied against him by his ex-girlfriends, Tahiri Jose and Sen Satiana. Budden has vehemently denied any wrongdoing and even offered counter-accusations of his own. Jay Connor for The Root. Whether it was a media play or a move to compete with Charlemagne the God's Black Effect podcast network, the Joe Budden Network launched 2 new podcasts catered to women. First up was the See the Thing Is podcast in 2020 and Girl I Guess in 2021. Spoiler alert, both podcasts are now defunct. And Melissa Ford serves as the network's primary female voice in 2025. Ford cemented her name in hip-hop culture through her video vixen career in the early 2000s. She joined the network in 2022 with Trevor Queens Flip Robinson. Hosted by Ming Lee and Karen Civil, Girl I Guess is the weakest installment of women-centered content on the Joe Budden Network and lasted less than 30 episodes. See the Thing Is with Bridget Kelly, Manny B, and Olivia Dope had a much longer run with over 200 episodes, but there were still controversies. Dope alleged she was sexually harassed in the workplace by Joe Budden on episode 16 of the podcast. She stated, on January 18, 2021, Joe Budden sat in a recording of the female-led podcast I was a part of and continuously made sexual, suggestive remarks to me that made me extremely uncomfortable, as well as fearful of dampening the mood if I didn't laugh along while he made those sexual remarks to me. Those moments not only live on the internet forever, it also forced me into the decision of quitting the podcast. Budden apologized and continued with his stellar career in podcasting afterward. His audience and co-hosts have either downplayed his questionable history with women or either don't care.
Rory, you are in breach of your contract, and from this point forward, you are fired, and you're not welcome back.
I near the end of my Joe Budden podcast binge with episode 435. It was released on YouTube on April 30th, 2021. Due to how huge the Rory and Mal firing was at the time in black pop culture, I had some context going into my watch. It's been a month since all 3 men have been filmed, and like usual, Parks is there. I immediately get flashbacks to the Marissa Mendez firing and the Hot 97 confrontation. Tension has stemmed from a text message Rory received from Budden informing him he should take several podcasts off. Mal, who harps on respect several times in this episode, sides with Rory and even unfollows Joe Budden. During their absence, Budden soft launches Ish and Ice as permanent co-hosts. Rory and Mal are officially fired in episode 437, and the duo responds to Budden's claims and reasoning behind the firing in a separate video of their own. The split came down to the business aspect of the podcast, with Rory and Mal feeling they were being treated as employees rather than partners. Loads of talk about accounting and contracts that became important with the podcast Spotify partnership. Mal has some good comedic jabs about Joe Budden's hats in their response video and denies he was ever a flunky. A direct response to Budden's claims of giving Mal a leg up. Similar to Marissa Mendez, Rory affirms he did a lot of groundwork in the building of the podcast and feels slighted by Budden's downplay of his role. Since their split, Rory and Mal are still podcasting and have a successful show. I finally finished my marathon of the Joe Budden Network with episode 826 and episode 5 of Podwise. For all the hoopla that's been made about Marc Lamont Hill on the podcast, I'm slightly underwhelmed when watching him. It's not what he says, but the shift everyone assumes he brings. Marc Lamont Hill and Melissa Ford are two liberal voices in a room that's still predominantly misogynist and hyper-masculine. Their presence feels like when Fox News adds in one or two liberal talking heads for a debate and then immediately switches back to their conservative programming. As for podwives, I'm not sure I would take relationship advice from any couple on the couch.
And it's easy to paint Cassie as the victim that was abused, who was trying to put an album out, and the big bad powerful man. Yes, horrible happened, but it couldn't. She was down for some of that.
I'm not denying.
So is the Joe Budden podcast now woke? Far from it, even with the Marc Lamont Hill edition. While his patience and tact engaging with co-hosts with alarming views on science, women, and politics are commendable, the long-term effects of his presence still need to be seen. This is a network that is highly volatile with its staffing, and one has to wonder how Joe Budden will adjust to not being the brightest star in the room. Additionally, while Hill might have earnest intentions with his new hosting gig, why is he even here aiding the rebrand of Joe Budden? A man who's faced no restorative justice for his abuses against women and the misogynoir culture he's curated on his network. Instead of hip-hop heads seeking reform in rap media, why not just tear down the whole thing? Reporting from the American Empire, I'm Sayou Cooper, and this is The Griots. Our theme song for the season is Jaws, produced by Suzuki-san. Our Instagram and other cool stuff can be found on our website. Links are always in the description box. Thank you to the ancestors. Until next time.